No one saw it coming. Live on air. Ibrahim Traoré looked Oprah Winfrey in the eye and spoke a truth so raw, so honest, it took the wind out of her. For a long moment, she was speechless. Then came her response, heartfelt, emotional. And it moved not just the audience in the studio, but viewers around the world. Many were left in tears. People are already calling it one of the most powerful interviews of the year, but it didn't start on stage. It began quietly on a rainy Monday afternoon. Ibrahim Traoré, president of Burkina Faso's transitional government, was nearing the end of a long workday when his assistant walked in holding a phone. "Mr. President," she said gently. "Oprah Winfrey's team is on the line. They want you on her show." He paused, caught off guard. Of course, he knew who Oprah was, who didn't. But television appearances weren't really his thing. "Why me?" he asked. "They say they've been following your leadership. You want to talk about the man behind the title?" He thought for a moment, then nodded. "Tell them I'll do it." What happened next? No one could have predicted. Not Oprah, not Ibrahim, not the millions who would tune in. By Wednesday night, Ibrahim was in Chicago, backstage at Oprah's studio. Bright lights lit up the set. The crowd was already buzzing. Then Oprah walked in, smiling, warm, welcoming, and from that moment on, "Mr. Traoré," she said warmly, reaching out her hand. "I've been looking forward to this." He stood up, meeting her gesture with a firm but respectful grip. "And you," he replied. But behind their smiles, something unspoken lingered. A quiet tension. Oprah Winfrey had built her legacy on asking the questions others wouldn't dare, questions that cut past the surface. And IbrahimTraoré.com, as ever, wasn't the type to shy away from uncomfortable truths. When the cameras turned on and the two stepped under the lights, their smiles remained poised, polite. But underneath, something deeper was waiting to rise. No one in the studio knew what was coming. No one imagined how quickly those smiles would fade, or how many hearts would break before it was over. Oprah began gently, asking about his early years, his path to leadership, and the future he dreamed of for Burkina Faso. Ibrahim spoke with quiet dignity. His answers were thoughtful, his voice steady. Then Oprah leaned in, her tone softened, but her words cut sharp. "Mr. Traoré," she said, her eyes locked on his, "you speak often about hope. But isn't it true your nation still ranks among the poorest in the world? That suffering continues under your leadership. How do you justify that?" A gasp swept through the audience. The energy shifted, but Ibrahim didn't blink. He didn't look away. He held her gaze, calm, grounded. And when he spoke, his voice was almost a whisper. "You know," he said slowly, "poverty isn't always what you think it is. And maybe it's time someone told you the truth." Time froze. Oprah drew in a sharp breath. And for the first time in her career, she looked shaken, vulnerable. What Ibrahim said next, no one saw coming, and it left the room in silence. A silence so thick, even breathing felt too loud. Oprah stared at Ibrahim, her signature calm a little shaken by the quiet strength in his eyes. She took a breath, then asked, this time more directly, "Then tell me, Mr. Traoré, if poverty isn't what we think it is, what is it?" Ibrahim leaned back, folded his hands, and paused. His voice, when he spoke, was gentle, but it carried weight. "Poverty," he said, "isn't just a lack of money, or food, or jobs. It's the absence of dignity. It's when a mother feels invisible while her children go hungry. When a farmer begs the sky for rain that never comes. When a child gives up on dreaming because no one ever told him he mattered." Oprah's expression softened, lips parted slightly as if caught mid-thought. His words had bypassed every layer of polish and protocol and gone straight to her heart. "You see," he continued, calm and unwavering, "what breaks people isn't empty pockets. It's the feeling that the world has decided they don't matter. Oprah blinked quickly, like trying to catch something inside herself before it slipped. In the crowd, people stirred, shifting, holding back tears they didn't expect. A silence fell, long and heavy. No one from the crew dared to break it. No cues, no camera direction. Just stillness. Then, quietly, Oprah looked up again, eyes glistening beneath the lights. She opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. She said, but her voice cracked. Ibrahim said nothing. He waited, steady and kind, giving her space. Finally, she found her words. I've interviewed presidents, kings, billionaires, she said softly. But no one has ever said it like that, and no one's ever made me feel it like that. A soft gasp rippled through the audience. Her hand moved to her chest as a single tear slipped down her cheek. I've spent my life telling stories, she whispered. But tonight, I think I'm the one learning a story I never truly understood. Ibrahim reached for the glass of water beside him, took a slow sip, then looked back at her clear-eyed. Grounded. And all he said was, it's never too late to see people again. Oprah bowed her head. And in that moment, something in the room changed. It began with a quiet sniffle, then another. From the front row, a woman dabbed at her eyes, then someone else. No applause, no music, just a room full of people, finally seeing Dot then. From somewhere in the back, a man let out a quiet sob. That was it. The moment, the weight of Ibrahim's words, Oprah's raw emotion, and the truth they'd uncovered cracked something wide open in the room. Even the camera crew, trained to stay neutral, were blinking back tears. Oprah lifted her head. Her eyes were red, her face still damp, but there was a smile now. Small, gentle, almost childlike. You have a gift, she said, her voice thick with feeling. You remind us what being human really means. But Ibrahim simply shook his head. No, he said softly. I only remind people of what they already know. They just forgot how to say it. For a moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, it began. A few hands clapped. Then more, and then the entire room rose too, its feet in a wave of applause, loud and rising, filled with something deeper than just praise. Oprah stood too, tears still on her cheeks. She stepped forward and embraced him, real, unfiltered, and completely unconcerned with the cameras. For the first time in years, the next segment didn't matter. The ratings didn't matter. In that studio and in millions of homes around the world, people felt something they hadn't in a long time. Hope as the applause echoed on. Oprah slowly found her voice again. It trembled, but it was steady enough. She leaned forward, eyes locked on his. If you could change just one thing about the world, she asked, barely above a whisper, what would it be? Ibrahim looked down at his hands. Silence settled once again, the kind that makes people hold their breath. When he looked back up, his eyes carried the weight of generations. I would erase the feeling, she said, that some lives matter less than others. No one moved, no one spoke. The studio fell into the deepest kind of silence, the kind that doesn't need words to be understood. You see, he continued gently, we've built a world that decides your worth by your wealth, the color of your skin, by the passport you hold. But when a mother in Burkina Faso cries over her starving baby, she cries the same tears as a mother here. And yet the world looks away, as if she was born to suffer. Oprah swallowed hard. Her eyes filled again. Ibrahim leaned forward just slightly and said one last thing, a whisper that felt louder than any shout. That is the greatest violence of all. To make someone believe their pain doesn't count. To make someone believe they're invisible. After those words, even the studio lights felt colder, heavier. The energy in the room had shifted completely. What began as a high-profile interview had turned into something no one expected, not a show, but a reckoning. People sat still, clinging to tissues, blinking through tears. Some leaned forward, barely breathing. Others just stared, quiet, shaken. In the front row, a woman sobbed openly. Behind her, someone whispered under their breath, "He's right. My God, he's right." Oprah sat back in her chair for a long moment, then slowly turned to the camera. Her voice was soft, fragile, even, but steady. "I think everyone watching at home is feeling what we're feeling in this room." Ibrahim offered a faint, almost bittersweet smile. Because deep down he said, "We already know the truth. We just forget to feel it." Then he shared one more story, the kind that lingers long after the screen goes dark. Just days before flying to America, he'd met a boy, small, barefoot, eyes too old for his age, who clung to his leg. Not to beg for money, not for food, but for something else. He said to me, Ibrahim recalled, voice tight, "Please, if you leave here, don't forget us." That was it, the breaking point. Several audience members broke down completely. The room filled with quiet sobs. Kupra pressed her hand to her heart, tried to speak. "Ibrahim," she began. But the words wouldn't come, even before the cameras cut to black. Clips from the interview were already racing across the internet. On Twitter, a hashtag began to trend within minutes. Hashtag DONT, forget us, around the world. People shared their own stories of being unseen, unheard of, longing to simply matter on YouTube. The live chat scrolled too fast to follow. "I'm crying. Thank you for saying this. Why does this hurt so much? 'Cause it's true." Back in the studio, Oprah stood and took Ibrahim's hand in both of hers. Her voice cracked again. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, "but I promise you I won't forget." Ibrahim rose, finally smiling fully, gently. "That," he said, "is all I could ever ask of anyone." They embraced quietly and off to the side. Near the edge of the set, a seasoned producer who'd worked 1,000 shows and never once cried on the job wiped his eyes. Because in that one moment, everyone remembered what it meant to feel human again. As the cameras cut to commercial, the studio fell into complete silence. Not even the hum of backstage movement dared interrupt what had just happened. Oprah sat frozen. The grace and polish she was known for had given way to something far more real, something raw, across from her. Ibrahim leaned in ever so slightly, hands folded, voice low. "You look like you carry the whole world," he said. Oprah blinked, tried to smile just a little. "I'm supposed to," she replied, her voice tight. But Ibrahim didn't look. Away, his gaze stayed steady, gentle. "You weren't born to," he said. "You deserve to feel seen, too." The words hit hard, quiet, heavy, real, and for the first time in years, she couldn't stop the tears. Off camera. A producer began counting them back in 3, 2, but no one moved. The moment lingered in the air like glass, fragile, trembling. Oprah wiped at her cheek, barely a whisper escaping her lips. How do you keep your heart open?" Ibrahim looked at her, calm and unwavering. His answer would become the most replayed line from the entire broadcast. "You can't change what you won't let yourself feel." And when the show returned from break, the world saw something it had never seen before, not just in Oprah, but in themselves. A quiet breaking, quiet awakening. Oprah took a breath, found her footing, and asked gently, "Where does this come from? This wisdom? Were you always like this?" Ibrahim leaned back. His eyes softened. "I wasn't born wise," he said with a quiet smile. "I was born in dust." And then he shared a memory, one that would stay with everyone who heard it. He spoke of his mother, a woman who raised him in a tiny mud hut with a roof that leaked in shelves that were often bare. At night, when the rain came through the cracks, she would hold him close and whisper, "My son, we may have nothing in our hands, but don't ever let your heart become empty." Then his voice slowed. "I remember one morning when I was 5. I woke up one morning," Ibrahim continued, "and saw my mother boiling stones in a pot, just to quiet my hunger. The room froze. She had no food," he said, his voice breaking for the first time. Nothing. I asked her why she didn't cry. He paused, swallowed hard. She looked at me and said, "If I cry, who will teach you to hope?" The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was sacred in the audience. People openly wept, not out of pity but recognition. Oprah covered her mouth, her whole body trembling. Her eyes welled as she looked at him. Then Ibrahim added, in a voice barely louder than a breath, "Pain can make you bitter, or it can make you better, but you have to choose." No applause, no words, just raw stillness. Outside the studio, the world was already reacting in real time. Clips of the moment were spreading like wildfire. The hashtags #BetterNotBitter and #Don'tForgetUs were trending globally within minutes. One viewer posted, "I've never cried during an interview before." This man speaks for all of us who've ever felt invisible. Another wrote, "Ibrahim Traoré just changed my life with one sentence. God bless him." Back inside, Oprah wiped her tears, her voice soft but full of emotion. "You've given a gift tonight, Ibrahim, to all of us." But he shook his head gently. "The gift," he said, "is that you listened." Then, slowly, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a worn, folded photograph, an old picture of his mother holding him as a baby. He placed it on the table between them. "She'd want me to remind you," he said, "that no matter how much you carry, you're not alone." Oprah picked up the photo with trembling hands. She stared at it, eyes filled, tears falling freely now. Then the audience rose, this time not just clapping, but standing, the room shaking with the longest ovation of the night. And as it quieted again, something unexpected happened. Oprah reached down beneath her chair, fumbling slightly. When she looked up, her hands were shaking. "I wasn't going to share this," she said, voice barely above a whisper. Ibrahim watched her still, present, listening. She slowly unfolded a single creased piece of paper. "It's a letter," she said, already choking back emotion. "From a girl on the south side of Chicago. She wrote to me years ago. Said she wanted to give up because she thought no one cared, whether she lived or not." Oprah's voice broke as she held up the letter. She looked at Ibrahim through a sheen of tears. "Tonight, Ibrahim, you said everything I wish I'd said to her." Without a word, Ibrahim leaned forward and gently took the letter from her hands. He read it quietly, reverently, then looked up, his eyes steady, certain. "She's still here," he said. Oprah gasped, covering her mouth. "Yes," he continued, "because when even one soul dares to truly see her, she can find the courage to stay." No one moved. The room was thick with emotion, a silence that said more than any applause ever could. And then a studio staffer quietly stepped forward and handed Oprah a note. She read it, eyes widening. "The girl she just tweeted," Oprah whispered. "I just watched this. I'm still here. Thank you." The broadcast had already run 5 minutes long, but no one dared cut to credits. The cameras kept rolling. The world kept watching. Oprah turned to her producer and quietly mouthed something. A phone rang on the desk. She answered it on speaker. A soft, trembling voice came through. "Miss Winfrey, is this really live?" Oprah looked at Ibrahim, then back at the phone, her voice gentle. "Yes, sweetheart, you're live." The girl sobbed. I saw you and him, and I just wanted to say thank you. I thought nobody saw me." Ibrahim's voice didn't waver. His eyes glistened, but his presence was strong, rooted. "You are seen," he said firmly. "And you matter more than you will ever know." Even the camera operators, seasoned, steady, were now openly wiping their eyes. A small voice, cracking through the line, whispered, "You saved me." That's when Oprah broke. She buried her face in her hands, unable to hold back the flood any longer. The girl hung up quietly, and the room was still. Ibrahim stood, resting a hand gently on Oprah's shoulder. "You've been saving lives all along," he told her softly. "Tonight just reminded you why." The audience stood again, not with the usual clapping fanfare, but with a quiet, reverent applause. A moment shared by strangers who suddenly felt like something more. Oprah, through her tears, turned to him with a trembling smile. "You have the heart of a lion," she whispered. The interview finally had come to an end. But no one rushed for the doors. No one grabbed their phones. They just stayed sitting in the warmth of something sacred they didn't want to leave. As Oprah rose to say goodbye, she embraced him one last time. "I thought I was here to interview you," she said quietly. "But in just 1 hour, you've taught me more than I've learned in years." Ibrahim smiled faintly, his words simple but unforgettable. "Pain teaches us faster than privilege ever could, but the heart still decides what we do with it." By now, Twitter was overflowing by millions of posts poured in like waves. And two hashtags rose to the top of the global trends. Hashtag Lionheart and hashtag IAMSeen. One viewer wrote, "If every leader in the world spoke like Ibrahim Traoré, maybe we'd all remember we're human first." Another said, "I've never cried so hard watching television. Bless this man. Bless Oprah for letting it happen." Before leaving the studio, Ibrahim turned back toward the cameras one last time. His voice was calm, but it carried the kind of weight that echoes long after it's spoken. Asterisk, asterisk, see the invisible, hear the voiceless, stand for the forgotten. That is where our humanity begins. Asterisk, asterisk, the screen faded to black. But the ripple had only just begun. The cameras were off, but the studio remained hushed. No chatter, no movement. Just a kind of stillness that lives between awe and reflection. Oprah sat in her chair, motionless, eyes fixed on nothing. Her mascara was streaked, her hands folded tightly in her lap at the edge of the set. Ibrahim stood quietly still, composed, his hands clasped in front of him. He hadn't said another word since the broadcast ended. Finally, Oprah stood and walked over to him. Her voice, when she spoke, was low. "Ra, why did you come here tonight, really?" Ibrahim looked at her eyes, deep, soft with humility, and gave her the simplest answer: to remind people that being seen is the greatest gift one human can give another. He paused, then added gently, "You see millions, Oprah, but who sees you?" Her lips trembled. No words came. "Even those who seem the strongest," he continued, "are fighting to be heard. You taught the world how to listen. Now let the world listen to you, too." Oprah's eyes welled again. She stood quietly, overwhelmed. Then, with a voice barely audible, she whispered, "Thank you for seeing me tonight." They embraced, a quiet, genuine hug, unseen by any cameras. But somehow, millions felt it anyway. By morning, something in the world had shifted. Cities didn't buzz with politics or celebrity gossip, but with humanity. Cafes replayed the interview. Classrooms debated what it truly means to see the invisible. People sat in subways, not scrolling, but reflecting. In Burkina Faso, thousands flooded the streets of Ouagadougou. They carried hand-painted signs that read, "We are seen." And better, not bitter. Children wore T-shirts with Ibrahim's face. Mothers wept with pride, saying they had never felt more honored to call someone their leader in Chicago. High school students gathered to paint a mural, Oprah holding Ibrahim's mother's photo. Beneath it, 3 words, "Hope is a choice." And in her quiet living room, Oprah sat alone. The sun peeked through her window as she played the interview again, over and over. She heard his words, "See the invisible, hear the voiceless." And each time, she felt her heart open, her chest tightened. Sitting alone in her quiet home, Kara picked up her phone and typed a message. Just a few words. "You changed more lives in 1 hour than most of us do. In a lifetime, you changed mine." Far across the ocean, in Ouagadougou, Ibrahim read the message. "And he smiled by the end of the week. More than 120 million people had watched the interview. Headlines called it the most moving moment of the year. But for Ibrahim, it was never about headlines. It was about hearts. That Friday afternoon, he stood at a dusty village school, watching barefoot children chase a worn soccer ball across the red clay. A little girl ran up to him shyly, tugging at his coat. "Sir," she asked, eyes wide, "why did you make Oprah cry?" He crouched down beside her, a gentle smile on his face, because, he said softly, sometimes tears are how hope finds its way back into the heart. She grinned, a big toothy smile, and ran off, giggling as her friends pulled her back into the game, and Ibrahim stood there for a while, quiet, watching the sky turn gold. At peace, that same night, Oprah sat beneath studio lights once more. She looked straight into the camera, not as a host, not as a brand, but as a person. "We all carry battles no one else sees," she said, her voice low and full of something real. "But every now and then, someone reminds us that we are still human, still worthy of love. Thank you, Ibrahim, for reminding me." Viewers everywhere watched with tear-filled eyes. And in living rooms across the globe, something lifted, something softened. And if you, dear viewer, felt that too, even in the smallest corner of your heart, don't leave without letting it be known. ***, tap the like button. Subscribe for more stories that matter. And comment below. I am seen. Let's keep the ripple going together.